Hello everyone, today I thought we'd do the Twitter verification system. Now we're not going to be doing payments because I don't have an extra 10 minutes to spare, but I'll leave that as an exercise to the viewer. Just go use the PayGem, it's really easy. In terms of the actual verification system, I'm going to go ahead and start the live split software and we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm going to go ahead and bump up the font size, hit CD ... do a Rails new. We're going to call this our video. We're going to give this a -D of PostgreSQL to give it Postgres, a -J of ES build, and a -C of Bootstrap because we're making a Twitter clone. So of course we have to use Bootstrap. Now this is going to be running for a little bit, so while it's running, I'm going to go ahead and start strategizing what we're going to do. I think we're going to include a website. We're going to include a ID verification, which is just going to be a picture that I'm going to upload that's my face. And we're going to say that this is all human verified. We're not going to be implementing any sort of AI here, although Twitter might want to if they're axing over half of their workforce. The email address is just going to be the email address of the user account you sign up with. So of course we're going to be using Devise for this. I'm going to go ahead and CD into our video, do a code dot to open this up in VS Code so that you guys can see a relatable text editor instead of Vim. And then we'll go ahead and we'll get started. We need to start by doing a bunch of bundle ads. So we'll do a bundle ad for the Devise gem, the simple form gem, so we can skip some styling. And I think that's it in terms of the actual gems, but I need to actually type bundle add. So that'll go ahead and add those dependencies so we can live a little bit on the edge. Now we can go ahead and do a Rails G simple underscore form :install -- bootstrap command. That'll give us our styling as soon as we do our Rails G Devise :install command. And then we have to generate our Devise user. So we'll say Rails G Devise user. That'll give us our user authentication system. Now we do need a role on that, which I totally forgot. So we'll say Rails G migration, add role to user. We'll say admin : Boolean, because we do need some admin accounts here. What else do we need? I think that's just about it. We'll see for now. We then need to do a Rails G scaffold for our verification. Each verification needs to have a website of type string by default, a photo, and the email comes from the user, so this will be fine. We can go ahead and we can run that. Now a verification does need to belong to a user. Forgot to do that, so we'll say Rails G migration, add reference to verification user : references. And we can do a Rails DB : migrate command to hopefully migrate our database. Let's go ahead and do a Rails S now. Exit out of full screen, come over to VS Code, hit Control+ a couple times, cough to clear my throat. We'll open up our routes.rb. I'll hit F11, and we forgot to generate a home page. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say Rails G controller pages home, and then we can do a Rails S again. That gives us something to work off of. We'll change this get to a root. We'll change the / to a hash. So now we have a home page. Come into our pages home, our home page maybe. In here, we'll do our general boilerplate where we say if current underscore user, then we need to link to the sign out page. There we go, log out page, else we need to link to a login page. That'll work just fine. And then right here, what we need to do is say, let's do a p tag. This p tag is going to say, this is your current underscore user dot username. That doesn't exist yet, so that's going to throw an error. We also need to close this p tag. Let's come into our user.rb real quick. Now the user really doesn't have anything special, but it does need to have this def username. This def username needs to do a email split, and then we need to actually store this inside of a underscore username. Then we need to say if the underscore username dot verified ? Which we definitely added to our user model. So let's go do that. We'll say this needs a Rails G migration, add verified Boolean to user, and this will be verified : Boolean. And we can do a Rails DB : migrate command. This is going to be the same quality of code that Elon Musk will get by forcing his employees to crunch this hard. So it's going to be a bunch of redundant migrations. If the user is verified, then the underscore username needs to have something appended to it, which is going to be + a string. This + of the string needs to be a verified check blue. Sure, why not? Not blue, verified check mark maybe. Just find us any sort of emoji if we can. I didn't realize part of the speedrun would be trying to Google something. This looks like a good enough emoji, so let's go ahead and let's try and copy this without it copying everything else. That works. And now let's full screen our VS Code, paste this in here, get rid of the empty space there. That looks fine to me. So now we have this. We do need to end this statement right here, end our def, and then this right here should be good. But for some reason, it's still throwing an error. But with Ruby, you can never tell if it's throwing an error because of something that's actually wrong or just because it's upset with you. That looks fine. We're going to go back to our dashboard real quick. The undefined method for the username is still here. But we, of course, have a username that is defined on our users. So I'm really not sure why it's upset with us. So let's go back to our homepage, hit F11. Current user.username. We need to make sure we're actually logged in here, which we are now. So that'll work. And our link to the login isn't working because this needs to be double equal signs on each of these. Now let's refresh. We get a login button. But we do need to generate our simple form devise views. So say Rails G devise :views, and then we can do a Rails S again. That will give us our simple form bootstrap styling, hopefully. Let's click on login, and there we go. So now we can go ahead and sign up. We can do dean@example.com with a password of password. Click the login button, and we're now logged in. Now we don't have a username here being displayed, although we really should. So in our username, we have the email.split. This should be getting returned. So we'll say return_username. Maybe that'll fix it. And then we'll mash refresh. There we go. There's our username. So we have that being displayed. Now we just need to deal with the verification system. So first step, don't mind that. That was me messing around with a bit of a demo idea. We're going to go over to verifications. Now on the verifications controller, which is going to be verifications controller right here, we need to do quite a bit of setup. Now, my thoughts are if you're a verified user, you should be able to sort of view your verification application. If you're an admin, you should be able to change the verification status. So we need to do a before action to say this is only for authenticated _users. And then we'll just say if you're a verified user or if you've paid for verification, you have access to this, but that's a problem for the payment team. So we'll just go ahead and we'll do another one where we say, is this user an admin ? And this is only for the following actions. And these actions are going to be the edit action, update, destroy, and show. So you can only view these if you are if you're the admin, although this is technically not true because this is going to be a multi-purpose method. But again, we're writing spaghetti code because we're under a time crunch. We're going to come into here. This is not what I wanted here. We're going to do a def is admin, because that's the name of our method. And then in here, what we want to do is we want to redirect to the root path unless the current user is not an admin. But this actually needs to be the second condition because the first condition needs to be if the @verification and .user does not equal the current _user. So if your current user is not the same as the user associated with this verification, then return to the root path unless you are the admin. If you're an admin, you're good to go. This does mean our set verification needs to also run for our isAdmin, which is going to be right up here. So once that's done, we now have this @verification being set inside of our set verification, which gives us this variable. We can now use this variable right here to check if this user associated with it is the current user, which means we have to come into our models. And in our verification model, we need to say, okay, does this belong to a user? Belongs to a user. And while we're in here, now that I'm thinking about it, we do also need to consider that the verification model needs to has one attached photo, and this means it will need a thumbnail. So say def thumbnail while we're in here, and this needs to be a photo.variant resize _2_limit : this will be an array of 300 by 300 processed if the photo is attached ? Which means we do need to come over to here, hit F11, do a Rails G active _storage : install command with a Rails DB : migrate after. But of course, that's not going to work because this isn't actually Rails G active underscore storage colon install. It needs to be Rails active storage, even though action text does have the G there for some unknown ungodly reason. So that'll generate that. That should be good to go. We're going to get some errors here with our authenticated user. That's fine. We'll deal with that in a second. So if we come into here, our authenticated user is throwing an error. I'm not entirely sure why this is a problem. I can only assume that something was wronged here at one point, but it might be that this needs to be authenticate user. There we go. Okay, so setting aside the wrongs that have been done to devise that would cause it to wrong me in such a way, we now need to make sure that if we're on the index page, we're redirecting to the root path unless the current user is an admin. That's just an extra check that we're doing here to make sure that in this specific case, it doesn't matter if you're associated with the verification. You just have to be an admin to see all of the verifications. Now let's come into our verifications and our verification form, because in our verification form, we actually need to do a f.input for the photo, which is going to be a as : file, I think. So let's go ahead and let's try a new verification. We'll do www.bruh.com, and then we'll choose a file. We'll give this file, I don't know, this photo of me, sure. And then for the actual f.submit, we'll give this a class of btn-secondary, sure. That's just to change this to look a little bit different. And maybe we want to give this a mt-2. And we'll just refresh that. Okay, www.bruh.com, and then we'll hit enter on this to choose this picture of me, create the verification, and now it's going to throw an error. And I ran into this the other day, and I can't for the life of me remember what was wrong with it. But if I recall correctly, this photo was fine here, but we did need to have a f.input for the approved if the current underscore user is an admin. Now, I don't quite recall if we made the approval in here. So let's go into DB, let's go to migrate, let's find the verification migration. And in the create verifications, we only created the URL. So we do need to do a Rails GE migration, add approved to verifications. Approved is a Boolean, Rails DB : migrate, Rails S, and then we can go back into here. And now we can try to create a verification, but in our controller for the verified stuff, we do need to permit the approved and the photo. That was what I forgot to do. So that should let that through, but now inside of our create, we do need to say the @verification.user is the current user. And after all of that, if we now create the verification, we're sent to the follow-up page. So now in our verification page, this is where we got to start doing a little bit of magic. We have our website. We're going to go ahead and copy this and copy this. This is going to be for our approval status. Then we do need to have one more for the verified email, I guess. And this is just going to be the verification.user.email, and that should be fine just like that. We then have this last website right here, which is going to be the photo ID, which is going to be the verification.photo, but this is actually the thumbnail because we created that thumbnail. And because it's an image, we'll just do it inside of an image tag, and that should automatically handle all of that for us. But our verification.thumbnail is returning nil. So let's see if our verification has a image or a attachment. It does not. What is wrong with the model? Let's go into our verification model. It does say it has a photo, so let's try to do a verification.photo. Now that is there, .attached ? It is not attached. That's a little bit strange. Okay, so let's come into our verifications, hopefully, and I'm not an admin, so I got to change that real quick. I'll go ahead and I'll open up a Rails console. I'll type Rails C, I'll hit F11, and then I'll do user.first.update admin : true, Control D, And then we can hit Control Shift and tilde. Oops, not to close it. That was wrong. But now I should be able to go to, let me try this, /verifications. And inside of our verifications, we need to do a verification.destroy. That'll just get rid of that one. Now let's try a new one. This will be www.bra.com. It can't be approved. Actually, it can because I am an admin, so that does make sense, as weird as that sounds. I'll create the verification. And now I'll go to /verification/1, and it actually needs to be verification/2, but I'm now being redirected to the root path for some reason. So let's come into our verifications controller, and let's check and make sure that in our method down here, in our isAdmin, that we have this correct. So in our isAdmin, we need to be doing a check to see if the @verification user does not equal the current user. And we also need to check if the current user is not an admin. Those are both true, but this actually needs to be a if, not an unless. I don't know why this language has an unless. It's kind of mega cringe if you ask me, but whatever. Let's go over to /verification/2. And that'll take us here. We now need the image processing gem. Okay, thank God. So we'll go ahead and we'll actually come into our gem file for this because it comes pre-bundled. So we can just hit Control/Control-S, run a bundle, and we'll do a Rails S to start the server again. Now we have the photo being rendered on the page. We can come in here and edit this verification, hit approved, update the verification, go to localhost port 3000. And now that we have this approved, we are not updating it in our verification controller. So we actually need to come into our verification controller. We need to do a little bit of fancy magic, but this is the last step. In our update, what we need to do is we need to say verified_bool is equal to active record : type : boolean.new.deserialize. I can't wait for someone to tell me that there's an easier way to do this, because generally there's a pretty smart person that comes into my comments and says, hey, actually you can grab this as a Boolean some other way, but I do need to do this as the params with the : approved. And now that we have this in a nice clean variable here, we can do @verified dot, @verified, it's actually going to be current_user dot, actually it should be the verified.user.update verified : verified_bool. I hope you realize why I did this. If it was current user, then the admin would be verifying and unverifying themselves. This way, instead, it'll grab this bool and set it inside of the verified user's Boolean, and then it'll go through with the rest of the verification. So now if I come into here and I edit this and I say this is, let's see now, I'll say they are no longer approved. We now have a undefined local method or variable for the approval, or for the verified here. This actually needs to be the @verification.user. We'll do that. We'll come in here, we'll refresh, hit continue. They are no longer verified. We'll refresh. We'll come in here, we'll edit this. We'll change this to approved. Come over to the home page, and they now have a check mark. Come in here, edit this, and I'll get rid of their verification, and they're no longer verified. So I'll do it one more time, edit this, approve them, hit update, and then the final thing I want to do is inside of the @destroy. Before we call @destroy, I'm going to call @verification.user.update. The verified is going to be set to false because we no longer have a paper trail saying they were verified at some point. So let's just refresh. They are verified. We'll destroy this. Come over here. They are no longer verified. And we can hit, I think, 1, maybe, to stop the timer. And that is an 1849 speed run of the weird cringe verification system that really has a lot of people overhead. And when 50% of them allegedly get laid off in a few hours here, people are probably going to run into some problems, but I don't work at Twitter, so that's not a me problem, which is my favorite kind of problem. But hopefully this was entertaining. I know this was largely pointless, but it's always fun to sort of go through one of these things and just see, like, you know, what you can do in the span of like 20 minutes. I don't know. Hopefully this doesn't end up getting more people fired when Guy Man thinks that this is like acceptable behavior to be throwing code at the screen like this. But yeah, hopefully you got a kick out of this, and you know, maybe you learned something too. So I'll just do a john@doe.com or john-doe.com, and I'll give it a different picture, maybe this one. I'll create the verification. Now he gets redirected, but I can come into my verifications here. I can see that John Doe wants to be verified. So I show this verification, and I show this verification. I guess we did have a bug here. This is why you don't code this quickly, but what is it? If the current user does not equal this, or the current user is not an admin, we redirect, but we can probably just do like a return if current user.admin, and then we can get rid of this right here. So we'll just do this real quick. This seems like a much better solution. We'll say return if the current user is an admin, otherwise check if the user matches that. So let me do this, show this verification, and now I can see this and I can edit it and I can change it to approved, and John is hopefully verified. Okay, so we did have one bug. I'm sorry, it wasn't an 18-minute speed run. It was like 21 minutes. But you know, it's like a small little lunch break or whatever. Anyways, hopefully this was enjoyable, and hopefully I'll see you in the next ridiculous video that I upload for some reason. Have a good day.